Welcome and thank you for joining us. My name is Jennifer North and I'm the Vice President of Beyond Celiac. I want to thank our presenters and our sponsor, the United Sorghum Checkoff Program, for enabling us to bring you this valuable content. You may have noticed that there's a handout that's downloadable for this presentation, and we want to thank Nora Bezikar and Cal Poly for providing us with the incredible recipes that they developed just for us. If you're a chef or registered dietitian and you require CE credit, please email Becky at the end of the webinar. Her email address will be on the closing slide. Thanks again for joining, and we hope you enjoy the session. At this time, I'll invite Becky Moreland, Director of Great Kitchens Program, to begin the presentation.
Thanks, Jen. I'm really excited to be a part of this webinar today for two reasons. One, I've been a huge sorghum fan since the 1990s when it was introduced as an alternative grain to the gluten-free diet. I was diagnosed with celiac disease in 1992, and back then the options for baking were really limited to basically just rice flour and potato and tapioca starches. So when sorghum was available, it really changed my baking results so much for the better. The other reason that I'm excited to be part of the webinar today is to have the opportunity to work with our friends at Cal Poly Dining, who've been part of our GREAT program for many years. For those of you that aren't familiar with GREAT, GREAT is an acronym. It stands for Gluten-Free Resource Education Awareness Training, and it's been a program at Beyond Celiac since 2008. Beyond Celiac used to be the National Foundation for Celiac Awareness, or NFCA. The program was expanded back in 2012 to become a multimedia online format, and approximately 4,500 food service professionals have completed Great Kitchens or Great Schools courses. I'm really proud of that fact, and I think it's really important to note that all of those individuals who are now trained through the program are educated and are aware on how to serve gluten-free safely to all their customers, their guests, students, patients, and campers who have celiac disease or gluten sensitivity, and to improve their quality of life for them as well. And now for our panelists. I'd like to have Megan and Mike introduce themselves. Megan?
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Megan Coates. I'm the Registered Dietitian and Sustainability Coordinator at Cal Poly for Campus Dining. Originally from Washington State, went to Washington State University for my undergraduate degree as well as my internship to become a dietitian. And since then, I've worked in a variety of capacities, K-12 food service in the clinical setting, nutrition education, nutrition support and sales. So I've done a lot of, varied background in nutrition over the years. And I finally joined Cal Poly in the fall of 2013. So in September, it'll be 4 years that I joined Cal Poly. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much, Becky, and everyone for allowing us to be on part of this webinar with you all.
Well, you're welcome. We're glad to have you. And Mike?
Good morning, Becky. My name is Michael Albright. I'm the executive chef here at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I've been in the food service industry for about 35 years. Been at Cal Poly for 6. It's been a lot of fun growing with the changes of the dining community with the Great Kitchens we started a few years back and our gluten-free and allergen-free window. It's been a lot of fun growing with the higher education community.
Well, I'm really glad that on your slide, Mike, you have the motto for Cal Poly, learning by doing, because I think that that was something that you guys really embraced when it came to this project. And just to let our audience know as well a little bit about the program at Cal Poly, you'd mentioned, Megan, that you were with them since 2013, and that's also when the Great Schools program was introduced in Cal Poly. So could you tell us a little bit about your gluten-free zone and how that was developed?
Yeah, of course. So in 2013, we partnered originally with Great Kitchens and Becky and her program and her team of people, to work with really transforming one of our stations in the dining hall, which you can see on the slide, into our allergen-free window. So this is our all-you-care-to-eat facility. It's our only one on campus, and this window in particular is our gluten-free zone. but anyone can eat here. So it's open to the public. So you walk in, you pay, you swipe your your ID card, or you pay if you're just coming off in from the community. You pay, you walk up, and then we actually have a sneeze guard to help prevent cross contact as much as possible. So there is an employee behind the line at all times serving up the dishes. So we've partnered with a number of projects with Great Kitchens. We've always had a lot of fun. This one's been really great. We've really evolved it over time, and we've actually made it allergen friendly as well, of the top 8 allergens. So we took it a step further and really try to protect the integrity of our kitchen space and the employees that work there, going through the training with Great Kitchens. They've really been a great resource. It's been a lot of fun, like I said, and we just continue to look forward to it in the future. And our customers really, really appreciate it. We are continually getting positive feedback from those with celiac disease, those are have some kind of gluten intolerance, or even customers that have no dietary restrictions. People really have enjoyed it this far.
Right. So Megan, you're saying that this station is free from the top 8, gluten-free, but any student is welcome to use this station. Is that correct?
Correct. Any student, staff, or faculty that comes in at our location of 19 Metro is welcome to eat at this location, at this window. And
what's the appeal to the other students and the staff that are not celiac or have food allergies?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of times, a lot of these products, I'm sure a lot of us are familiar, a lot of allergen-free products typically are pretty simply made with simple ingredients. We don't, most of those, the items that are available, have less than 5 ingredients, just because we want to keep it simple. We want to make sure that they are free of the top 8. And then that they are certified gluten-free ingredients. So, our proteins are really simply roasted. We have a roasted veggie every day, or a steamed vegetable every day. Very, simple. We always have some kind of starch, whether it's potatoes or rice or corn tortillas or, you name it. And then we also have a few composed salads, which are really, really popular with those who don't even need to eat gluten-free. And those vary, lentils and beans and legumes and even some starches as well mixed in. So there's a variety of items there that rotate throughout the week. But again, they're really simple, and they're pretty darn healthy, which is why a lot of it is a high appeal for a lot of other people too, just because they are simple and they are pretty healthy.
Okay, great. Well, that's awesome. Okay, super. So let's get on to the webinar, and we're going to start with the learning objectives. So hopefully by the end of the webinar today, you'll be able to recognize that sorghum is a natural gluten-free grain, and it's suitable for the gluten-free diet. That we're going to describe the nutritional benefits of sorghum, identify a variety of ways to prepare it and to use the grain as well as the flour, and then to recognize the adaptability of sorghum. We'll be following these objectives in order throughout the webinar today. So we're going to start at the beginning with gluten, because as I mentioned, we're going to talk about the gluten-free diet. So what is gluten? Gluten is a protein that's found in the grains wheat, rye, and barley and their derivatives. And if you're a baker, you know that it's what holds bread together, and it gives baked goods its structure. Where can it be found? Well, a variety of places. It's a very big staple to the American diet, and it's found in the obvious places like breads, muffins, pizza crust, croutons, bagels, cereals, pies, and then it can be found as well in soups, broths, sauces, and gravies. It can come in the form of orzo, pasta, couscous. But when we get into processed foods, that is when things get tricky, and it's not as easy to identify. It might be in a flavoring, in a seasoning, in a stabilizer, obviously in breadings and things like that. And so, to Megan's point about the gluten-free station, a lot of processed foods are eliminated from that station. So it's an easy way to keep gluten out of the food. Why is this important to those who have celiac disease? Well, gluten is the trigger. It's the trigger for a serious genetic autoimmune disorder called celiac disease. And if you look at this slide, you'll see a variety of symptoms. And there really are over 300 symptoms to celiac disease. These are some of the most common ones that you're seeing here. And if you want more information about celiac disease, we do have a symptom checklist on our website. And if you go to beyondceliac.org, you will find that checklist. There's another disorder that is important when we talk about gluten-related disorders, and that's non-celiac gluten sensitivity. There's approximately 18 million Americans that have this disorder. It is similar to celiac disease in that it is triggered as well by gluten, but the immune response is very different. There's no damage to the villi. So it's not a permanent. There's no permanent damage, but we do need to have more research in this disorder, and we are seeing more research happening today. So who's eating gluten-free and why? Well, this shows you a slide or a target that illustrates the various people who are eating gluten-free. We have those who have celiac disease. Oops, excuse me. We have those who have celiac disease, which is 1% of the population, and that's in the very center, the red target. And then gluten sensitivity is the yellow target at about 6% of the population. And then those who have gluten-related disorders, which would be less than 1% of the population, would be people that might have wheat allergies or gluten ataxia, those types of conditions. Those three target audiences, they're not going away. They will eat gluten-free every day, every meal, every snack. And then we have people who have other health concerns or other disorders that are using the gluten-free diet to help with symptoms. And those people might be people who have rheumatoid arthritis, MS, autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, IBS, and that list is really growing. And then we have the 23 or part of the 23% of the population that are choosing to eat gluten-free as a lifestyle. This group includes people that might be part of the health halo effect, might be family members who have people in their household that eat gluten-free. They may be athletes. So that list changes depending on their particular need. About the gluten-free market, well, it is growing, and it's definitely moved from niche to mainstream. And if you look at this slide, you'll see that there's been a 136% growth rate from 2013 to 2015. And that growth rate basically started when the FDA labeling law came into effect in 2013. What happened at that point is that a lot of the big corporations got into the market. There was more innovation in eliminating gluten in products. And again, I mentioned the FDA ruling. So 11.6 billion in sales in 2015. And again, that number continues to grow. So let's get on to the diet and to the grains. So the naturally gluten-free diet is what we hope that people will base their diet on. And if you look at this, these are things that everyone should be eating, right? We've got, very natural foods, fresh meats, fruits, vegetables, and dairy products without any flavorings or seasonings, legumes, nuts and nut flour, and obviously there's no allergy to those. And then starches, and I mentioned early on that the starches that were used in the products were the tapioca and potato starches, but now we also see corn and pea starches used as well. So let's talk about the grains. So these are gluten-free grains that can be used in the diet as well. And your common grains are on the left, corn, buckwheat, rice, and all types and forms. But today we're going to be focusing more on the ancient grains. And they've been on trend. Ancient grains, you're seeing more and more of them in restaurants as well as dining halls. And this is for good reason. They are a healthier choice. They're whole grain. Many people want to delete the wheat from their diet. They're less processed. And it adds some diversity to your palate and to your meal plan. You notice quinoa is on that slide, and quinoa has been seen prolifically in restaurant menus. We're seeing it all over in products now. You're seeing a lot of quinoa being added into products in flour as well as popped. The seeds are being used. And then, but today we're going to talk about sorghum. And sorghum is really kind of just basically entering into the restaurant menu world. But if you are if you want to add something to your menu and be cutting edge, sorghum is the grain that you might want to look at. And so today we're going to learn all about sorghum and why that will be a good choice for you. But I didn't want to leave out the other common and ancient grains. These are ones that are basically not gluten-free. And we talked about barley and rye, but the others included here would be spelt, triticale. I'm going to talk a minute about oats, but that can be or possibly cannot be gluten-free. Farro, you're seeing that a lot on menus as well, kamut. And I mentioned couscous because most often it is made from durum wheat, but it doesn't have to be. In a lot of the research that I've done, I noticed that sorghum can also be a source that is used as a couscous. And as well as pasta. Pasta doesn't have to be made from wheat. It can be made from all different kinds of grains. So let's talk a little bit about oats. This slide shows you a variety of the way oats can be prepared and produced. But oats are inherently gluten-free, but they have a high level of contamination from wheat and barley in different stages of processing. Certified gluten-free oats would be those that are grown, milled, stored, processed, and packaged in a dedicated manner, which we call the purity protocol. And those are deemed safe for people with celiac disease. However, there is a portion of that group, 3 to 5%, that can't tolerate even the certified oats. And oats can be labeled gluten-free if they meet the FDA standard. And those standards, you can find more about that particular issue on our website as well. But they can be processed either in the purity protocol or can be mechanically or optically sorted if they meet the FDA guidelines, and they can be labeled gluten-free at that point. So this is really important. So if you're going to be using gluten-free grains, they are also at high risk. Naturally gluten-free grains and flour can be at risk of contamination from gluten-containing grains, and so you want to make sure that if you're going to be using a flour, cereal, or an actual product that is gluten-free, that it is labeled gluten-free and certified gluten-free. And that includes things like rice, rice flour, cornmeal, millet flour, buckwheat, sorghum grain and flour, corn grits, all of those. You want to make sure that those are deemed gluten-free when you use them in a gluten-free menu. And now for our featured grain for the webinar, sorghum. So let's learn a little bit about the history. If you're from a farming community, you might be familiar with sorghum because it's called milo, and milo is a livestock feed. But that is really sorghum. It can also be used for food and for the fuel usage. Today, obviously, we're going to be talking about the cereal grain that's used for food. It was first collected in southern Egypt in 18,000 BC, and then it spread through the different African tribes in Africa, Ethiopia, Sahel, and then through China and India and Australia, and ended up in the United States in the 1700s. The first notation of that was Ben Franklin using the sorghum stalks for brooms. Obviously, my connection with sorghum started in the 1990s, as well as many other people in the celiac community when it was introduced as an option for our gluten-free diet. So now Megan is going to tell us a little bit about the health benefits. Megan?
Thanks, Becky. So as Becky just discussed, kind of the history of sorghum, how it became more popular, how it's slowly becoming more popular, especially in the United States. One thing I love about sorghum is that it is a whole grain. It's super high in fiber. There's about 6 grams of fiber for a half a cup of sorghum. That's cooked sorghum. So obviously it's going to, really be really good for digestive health, good energy booster, super high in antioxidants, and a lot of these benefits are so good for people that are especially on, plant-based diets. Obviously they're good for anyone, but especially for those that are following a plant-based diet because it is such a great plant-based protein. Because of the high fiber, it's also going to help with satiety, making you feel full, for high blood pressure in general. So there's a lot of health benefits to fiber. And on this slide, we can see just, again, that high in protein, 10.2 grams of fiber per 100 grams, really, high in iron, in B vitamins, potassium, magnesium, phosphorus. Some of these vitamin minerals that, of course, everyone needs in their diet, but especially those with any kind of digestive issues, celiac disease, and again, those plant-based diet. So when we were introducing this to my students and students in general, some of the things that they really liked about it were that it is, they consider this a healthy whole grain because it is a whole grain. It is high in protein, and there's lots, the variety of different nutrients, like I mentioned those last couple of slides. It's really easy to cook, and it holds well, and we're going to talk more about that in the next few slides. We really enjoyed that we could cook it and then cool it down and keep it in the walk-in, and then, it was easy for us to either grab it cold out of the walk-in or even just reheat it really simply to use it in whatever kind of dish that we were preparing, like I said, we'll discuss in a few minutes. It had a really good acceptability rate with our students when we did sample it. We sampled it to in a variety of different capacities, up to a few hundred students, 400 or 500 students actually tried a couple of these dishes, and they really liked it because it's similar to pasta. It kind of has that bite like an Israeli couscous, which is what I really like about it. But I hear from students all the time that they're kind of getting over quinoa, unfortunately. So they're looking for something new and different and something to spice it up again. And so they like that it doesn't have that crunch that quinoa has, but it actually tastes more like that pasta texture. And again, it's so versatile. It's you can make it in sweet and savory dishes. We really found the application to be this, good in any application. These are 3 of my students. This picture, actually, there's 3 nutrition students that work for me, and they're trying one of our chicken nuggets that we'll actually talk about here soon. And Nora on the left is, she actually has celiac disease, and I'm going to talk about her more later, but they're enjoying the chicken nugget.
Yeah, that's a great picture. I love that.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so needs for the gluten-free student.
Yeah, so a lot of nutrients are actually lacking in a student with that has celiac disease or that is following a gluten-free diet. And some of the ones that we need to be conscious of is iron, folate, B12, and fiber. And of course, like I mentioned before, sorghum is so high in iron and fiber, so it is such a good source for students or people in general with that are following a gluten-free diet or that are not. It's really a good application for any kind of diet. Sorghum fits into any kind of diet, but of course it does really fit into a gluten-free diet or a plant-based diet.
Good, thank you. Okay, so this is a picture of just a variety of different types of sorghum, and you'll see the tan sorghum on the left, and then the black sorghum, and the pearled sorghum, which is on the right of the big bowl of the flour. So the tan sorghum, the pellets or the kernels are kind of like the size of a BB, and it's cooks like rice. And I know Mike's going to talk about the cooking process in a little bit. The black sorghum is very high in antioxidants and has a lot of great health benefits. And then the pearled sorghum is decorticated, which means it's removed, the periocarp is removed or the outer layer is removed. And that's done so that it cooks quicker and it has a little more of a tender texture to it. The big bowl in the middle is the grain, or is the flour, and it kind of has just a sweet, kind of nutty taste to it. It's very light in color, and it can be used cup for cup. I know we're going to talk a little bit about the baking in a little bit. The sorghum bran is the big brown bowl of flour, and that's again very high in antioxidants and in fiber. And then the flaked sorghum, which is in the little scoop on the left, that was something that I was excited about using, and I tried that in some cookies, and I know that Cal Poly used that in several applications as well. And then there's the puffed sorghum, which is also kind of like a puffed rice, and then the popped sorghum, which is little teeny tiny kernels that are popped just like popcorn, and then the syrup. So the syrup is similar to like a molasses. It's sweet like a molasses, but it can also be malted and used in beer or whiskey. So I know we're seeing that being a lot of these new craft breweries that are making gluten-free beer are using this as their base. Okay, so Mike, you want to tell us a little bit about the cooking application? How do you cook sorghum?
Yes, Becky. So it cooks very similar to a pasta or a brown rice. It's about 3-to-1 water to sorghum. Bring it to a boil for 45-50 minutes or so, depending. You can pre-soak it. We did not. I would imagine you can soak it overnight would cut down the cooking time. After cooking it, we rinsed it because we wanted to see different applications, cooling it, freezing it, reheating it, see how all those things affected the sorghum. And we found that from the freezer to thawing and cooking really didn't affect it that much. We kind of cooked everything al dente, so we can reuse it in different applications, from stir fries to risottos to salad dishes.
So Mike, when you did cook it, did you just cook it in water, or did you add any type of stock or anything or seasonings into the sorghum when you were actually just cooking it?
No, we just did it with water. We wanted to see it from more of its natural state, and then you could add flavors after. You could cook it in a stock if you were going into a chicken dish or a veggie dish. Mm-hmm. I think it would just enhance the flavor a little bit.
Right.
And one thing just to add, Becky, we found that once we cooked it and then we cooled it, it became a little crunchier than we actually liked. So if we know ahead of time that we were going to use it in a cold dish, we probably would have cooked it a few minutes longer. Just like with any grain, any grain, if you put it in the refrigerator overnight, it's going to kind of get a little more al dente. So just be mindful of that. If you know the application you're going to be using, maybe cook it just a few minutes longer. If you are going to be using it in a cold dish, in like I said, like the next day. But if not, then I think there's nothing to worry about, of course. But that's just to our liking.
So when you cooled it, you just put it out on a baking sheet to cool, and then divide it up into portions, or did you put it stick it all in the refrigerator and then just scooped out what you needed?
We had it in like a short pan, like a 2-inch pan. We made it a couple different times throughout the weeks. So we would just put it in a 2-inch pan, throw it in the walk-in, and then it was good to go for us for the next few days to play with it. Yeah,
great. Okay, so what about the flour?
Well, for the flour, you can substitute for wheat flour about a cup per cup. You can blend it with other gluten-free flours and starches. Try to add it as a binder with xanthan gum. Other binders, egg white, cornstarch.
Did you guys use any binders in yours, or did you just use straight sorghum flour?
Straight sorghum flour. I found it to be similar to a legume flour, that nutty texture.
Okay, good. I know that sometimes, depending on what I'm making, I will blend it. I'll do like a cup sorghum, cup of the blended flour, just to give it a little bit lighter consistency.
Yeah, we found in some applications it was better to blend it, and some it went just fine straight cup for cup. So I think it really depends on the application, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the recipe development phase as well.
Okay, great. Okay, so before we get into the experiment, which Cal Poly did for us with the sorghum, We just want to show you some of the different places where you can get inspiration and show some of the variety of the ways to use sorghum. And if you look on the left, you'll see some appetizers. These are stuffed mushrooms that have a little bit of an herb and sorghum into the mushroom with some seasoning. These are found at Simply Sorghum, which is the website for the Sorghum Checkoff program. And then another website, we have them on our website as well, Beyond Celiac. This is a little Rocky Road snack mix. So that's the popped sorghum mixed with some chocolate and nuts and things like that. And then the breakfast options, all kinds of breakfast options, using it as a porridge. You can put it in smoothies, use the syrup, and make pancakes with the flour as well as the grain. I've seen it used both ways, muffins and waffles. And then the bowls, a variety of ways to make it with bowls or put it in tacos. You know, for those people that, again, have a plant-based diet, this is a great option. And then salads and soups as well. And then, again, on the Beyond Celiac website, one of the featured recipes there is called I Can't Believe It's Not Barley and Beef Stew. This recipe was provided by Chef Una Williams, and basically just took the barley out and put the sorghum in, which is, you know, it's very similar in texture to barley and would be a great alternative. And then I can't wait to try this blueberry ricotta skillet cake. I've been meaning to try it with blueberries being so prevalent right now. It's gorgeous. And so desserts, again, you can make crepes, you can do cakes, cookies, puddings, brownies. All of them, again, you'll find a lot of great recipes, both food service recipes and consumer recipes on the Simply Sorghum site. Okay, so now for the heart of the webinar, Mike and Megan are going to tell us about their experience with sorghum.
Thanks, Becky. Yeah, and I just want to kind of tap into what you just said too. We found that sorghum was such an easy substitute for anything, and that's one thing we liked about it so much. A lot of the recipes we've already had, and we really just took whatever grain was in there, or if there was no grain, we just added it in. So it's a really easy way to substitute any kind of dish in any application, and because of all the nutrition benefits, that was what was so appealing to me originally when Becky first approached us. Was because of the nutrition benefits, just to add to our, at least, you know, our population, which is mainly students, staff, and faculty. So anyway, so Becky asked us to R&D lots of products that were generously donated by lots of great companies that, you know, are really trying to push sorghum into our market, which has been a lot of fun. I had an intern help with some recipe development and just doing some research on sorghum in general, and then recipes. And then I also had another student actually help me develop a lot of these recipes. So again, we were really trying to embrace that learn by doing philosophy and motto that Cal Poly has for our students. So you can see on the right-hand side, not the prettiest picture, but it was one of our favorite dishes. We made a Spanish sorghum stuffed pepper. Say that 5 times fast. And it was really, really good. It was something that we would definitely use in our gluten-free window for sure. It was super simple, and I'll talk more about it in a few minutes. But because we were working in university food service, we tend to work with simple recipes and simple ingredients. So when I first approached Chef Albright about this project and this partnership, you know, he really wanted to make sure that I remembered that, you know, we're sticky to simple. Simpler the better, so we can recreate this, you know, in large volumes when we're working with a population of 20,000 students. So that was really our goal, is just to find simple recipes that, you know, our cooks could easily recreate with, you know, little to no guidance, pretty much. And so that stuffed pepper really is just sorghum, corn, black beans, a spice blend, like a Mexican Spanish spice blend, and then topped with avocado and salsa. And then we just baked it in the oven to get it some crisp, to crisp up the sorghum, and it was super delicious. We also did a chicken nugget that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes, and also a pizza crust.
So before we go on, Megan, I have a question. So one thing you mentioned earlier was that you said that it was really versatile because you could just sub it out for any other type of grain. So other than the samples that you were given, did you have to purchase any other ingredients in order to create these recipes, or did you just use what you already had in your pantry and in your refrigerator, your cold storage and frozen?
We definitely just used whatever we had in our pantry. Again, we were We wanted this to be a real life experience, you know, as part of the R&D process. So we didn't want to get out of the box crazy because we wanted to, you know, we really wanted to be able to recreate these in a real application in day-to-day cooking. So no, we did not get too crazy at all. You'll see my student got a little crazy. I let her have a little more creativity, just you know, so we can kind of see what it looked like more like maybe in a smaller restaurant application, even the home, you know, home cook application. So that's why I had my student tap into these recipes as well, just to kind of get, another perspective, you know, going from a commercial kitchen into a home kitchen as well.
Good, great, okay.
So
what about the nuggets?
Oh, the nuggets. Great. These are one of our favorites too. So Chef Albright made a really cool, just a little. What is this called?
That's the flakes.
The flakes, thank you. With the flakes, he added Parmesan cheese, salt, paprika, garlic powder, and then so we actually dipped the chicken in buttermilk and then coated it with this coating with the flakes. And we actually added some flour into it just to kind of help coat the chicken a little bit more. And then those flakes really gave it a really nice crunch. So we actually baked them in the oven, one application, and then we fried it actually in a deep fat fryer for another application that we know that our students with celiac wouldn't be able to eat because of cross contact. But again, we were just experimenting with it in general, so we just wanted to see what would happen to it if we did have a deep fat fryer that was you know, specific for our gluten-free kitchen. So we did both applications, and they both turned out really, really good. The flakes gave it a really nice crunch. I actually went out into our university union, and I had probably almost 100 students try a bite of these chicken nuggets. You know, I approached them, asked them if they'd ever heard of sorghum. Of course, most of them had never heard of sorghum. So I explained what it was, and I had them try the different applications, and they loved it. You know, they thought it was really good. They loved that, you know, it was high in fiber, high in protein. It was a plant-based protein, of course, that I mentioned over the chicken. But it really, you know, had a lot of great flavor. Chef Albright did a really good job with the flavoring of the coating. It was super nice and crispy. The students liked both preparations. My 3 nutrition students here, of course, they said they liked the bake application better. I was like, that's just because they're nutrition students. But I liked them both. They both turned out really, really good. It was a lot of fun.
That's great. Okay, what about this pizza dough? This looks really interesting.
Yeah, so the pizza dough is one that Nora helped with, and again, I mentioned her before. She was a student that actually has celiac disease, one of my student employees. She's a second-year nutrition student here at Cal Poly. So I enlisted her just to help with a few of the things. This is one of her passions anyway, is to kind of do some recipe development, so I figured why not give her the reins and let her, give her some of the ingredients and the samples and let her run wild. So she wanted to make a pizza crust because, you know, they're hot right now. You know, cauliflower pizza crust, quinoa pizza crust, different flours. So she tried it in this application and had a lot of good positive results. On the next slide, you can see the actual pieces that she made. She really found that the dough was really moist and pliable. She did substitute it cup for a wheat flour. So she, you know, she found some recipes online and adapted it to the sorghum flour. She said it was super easy to use. It didn't crumble. The consistency was pretty much spot on, and it had a really good flavor. Again, like Chef Albright and you had both mentioned, that kind of nutty flavor really added a lot of just a lot of nice flavor and texture to the pizza crust. So on these pizzas, she did, on one of them is just a marinara, tomato, basil, and bell pepper. And on the other is a kale pesto, mushroom, and tomato pizza, I believe. So this is one of her favorite applications just because since she does have celiac disease, she doesn't get to have pizza all that often. So she really enjoyed this one. And this is definitely something that we could easily recreate within a campus dining application as well.
I'm a pizza lover too. These look amazing.
Yes.
They look great. Okay.
And so the salads, yeah. So we did a lot of these salads. A lot of these salads we actually already used within campus dining. Again, like I mentioned before. So it was really either taking out the grain that we were already using or adding in the sorghum just to give it some texture and some nutrition value. You know, if you're taking just a regular green salad or a regular vegetable salad and adding in sorghum, you're really adding in a lot of nutrition benefit that I don't think people think about all the time. And I think that's one great reason to use sorghum is because of the nutrition benefits, adding it to any kind of vegetarian or vegan dish. So we did here. Chef Albright's preparing the Asian sorghum salad, I believe. Again, you know, he cooked this in about 50 minutes. We did freeze these portions and then thawed them just in the walk-in just to see how it held up. It definitely held up that al dente, chewy texture like we had mentioned. We probably would have cooked it a few more extra minutes knowing that we were using this in a cold application, but again, this was why it's R&D. So yeah, we went ahead and Asian sorghum, this Asian salad is one that we serve in our dining hall already. So we just decided to throw in the sorghum, again, for that nutrition boost.
So Megan, on these salads, if you had used other grains in the past, which ones had you used before?
I think we'd done a quinoa with this one before.
Okay.
This is typically our quinoa salad, and so we just took out the quinoa and then added in the sorghum.
Okay, great. Oh, yeah, this is this gorgeous salad. So yeah.
Yeah, so here's the salad right here. It's really just chopped veggies. You know, we use broccoli, the cabbage, red bell pepper, really anything we had in the kitchen.
It's like edamame in there.
Yep, edamame, so again, another plant-based protein. The cold cooked sorghum, and then Asian slaw dressing. It was like a peanut-based dressing, and it had a little bit of kick to it. So it was a little bit spicy, a little bit sweet, a little bit savory and salty, and then we added some cilantro. So yeah, this is really nice and fresh and light. Sorghum really takes on any flavor that you put onto it, which is another thing that we really liked about it. It's really adaptable to pretty much any flavor profile.
It's beautiful. Okay, so I love this idea. Tell us about the Tasting Thursdays. Mike, is this your creation? Is this something that you invented?
Yeah, this is what we started at the beginning of the school year last year. We had done some rebranding in some of our dining locations, and we thought it would be a good way to kind of get it out to the campus community on what was new and what we were doing, and kind of get the chefs out forward instead of behind the kitchen. Actually see that there's chefs back there preparing this food. So we started out with doing that. And then we kind of started running out of items that we were, the new items. So we started introducing things that we were R&Ding for whether the winter, the fall, or next, this coming year. And it went really well. We did, it was 1 hour every Thursday from 11 to 12. And it was, whatever I kind of wanted to do or the other chefs wanted to do. With the sorghum that week, we did a southwestern sorghum and kale salad that had corn and black beans and peppers and cilantro, and I think we did a light chipotle lime vinaigrette with it. And the students really loved it. We went through all 400, 500 portions that we provided that day. They were really interested in what sorghum was. They thought at first it was couscous, and no, it's not couscous. And this was a vegan application too. So that was real important to our campus community that we keep that, that we have vegan options too.
So what is the percentage of students that you have that prefer vegan? Do you know?
We don't have any specific numbers. We all know that that's trending right now. Plant-based diets are on the rise. There's a lot of statistics out there that is saying that and backing that up. So this is the new trend. This is the fad. This is where we're going for the sustainability benefits, for the health benefits. There's a lot of benefits to either going more towards a plant-based diet or just the meatless Monday type of thing. Avoiding meat for one day or cutting back on portions. And Mike's going to talk about that in a little bit, kind of our menus have changed for the protein flip that we've been working on. But we're really trying to focus on bringing in more of the plant-based proteins, and making the meat the garnish or the addition on the side, just so our vegan students or vegetarian students or the students that are more health conscious are trying to cut back for environmental reasons, or there's so many reasons why students and people decide to go plant-based. So we're really trying to kind of jump on that bandwagon now because we know it's only going to increase over time. So.
Yeah. One other thing I know that I think you mentioned was that you said that you did these tastings between 11 and 12 every day or every Thursday. Now, is it true that you guys don't have any classes between those hours? Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's called
that is so cool. I love that. Yeah. Tell me about that.
So almost the entire campus population does not have class between 11 and noon because that's when we know that the professors and staff and faculty can have a break to go to meetings, actually. So the professors are actually, and staff and faculty are still really busy going to meetings, but students have that 1 hour break. There are some classes that are still going on during that time, but the majority of the campus population does not have class. So there's a lot of things that go on during 11 and noon in our kind of our commons area. There's music and vendors and fairs, and people are selling things, and there's food, and there's all kinds of things going on in our main common area. So that's why Chef decided to do a tasting Thursday between 11 and noon to really captivate a couple hundred at least students every Thursday that are walking through that area. It's a just to capitalize on that that free hour is really it's priceless.
Yeah,
So,
that's fun, and it just really builds a sense of community. I just love that idea.
absolutely, yeah. Students are mingling, they're out, dancing around, and talking to their friends, and yeah, it's a really fun time. And it's beautiful, obviously, in California. So
Yeah.
The majority of the year, students are outside. If it's cloudy, usually it's not that busy out there. But if the sun's out, they're out.
All right. So what about this kale pesto salad? It looks really good.
This is the one that Nora did. Again, my student. She made this awesome kale pesto that I believe this recipe is definitely in that cookbook that was given out to all participants that are listening to the webinar. She just did this easy kale pesto with pine nuts, kale, some oil, salt, and pepper, and it was super yummy. She brought in all these items for me to try as well, of course. But then she just threw some tomatoes in there. So again, if in any kind of application in restaurants and campus dining, if you're making these big, you're making big batches of pesto, throw it in with the sorghum and a bunch of vegetables, and you got yourself a really good, healthful dish.
So this is both cold and warm, correct? Isn't it hot application? Yeah.
Thank you. And that was one, yes, Nora did this both cold and hot. I tried it both cold and hot, so this is one thing that is easy to use either way. And
yeah,
super tasty both.
Looks really fabulous. Okay.
Yeah, yummy.
So now dessert. Tell us about this.
Dessert. So Nora really wanted to try the skillet cookie, and I told her to go for it. Probably not used in a campus dining application, but definitely in a restaurant application or a small, home cook application for sure. She used the sorghum flour for this. It definitely was a cake-like consistency, so it was a little spongy, which was great. But she definitely thought the blend would work better in this application specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the blends that Becky had mentioned before, a legume blend or a sorghum and a gluten-free flour blend would probably be a better application for this particular recipe, but it was still super tasty. And this recipe is in your recipe book. And then the crispy sorghum marshmallow bar. Rice Krispie treats are really, really popular on our campus. We make some really, really good ones that our campus community loves. So we decided, why not use one of our favorite recipes? And so Nora kind of translated it into a little quirky, yummy recipe. It was actually more like a cereal bar. She used the sorghum crisps, which are similar to a crispy rice, and so they weren't as airy as like a Rice Krispie, so it was more dense, which made it seem more of a cereal bar, but it was still super delicious. It definitely filled you up. It had a lot of delicious flavors, and she drizzled dark chocolate, of course, so it was very decadent. You did, a little went a long way, that's for sure. But it was fun, and it was something different that could be used in any application.
Right, and I love the skillet idea for the sorghum skillet cookie because, for restaurants, if you were going to offer this as a dessert to the table, it's already contained, so there's no form cross contact. There's no way that it could be a problem. So that'd be an easy way to offer a gluten-free dessert, which sometimes is difficult to do in restaurants. So I think that's really cool.
Yep.
Okay. I actually did some sorghum cookies, and I wanted to add these in because this was a really fantastic day for me. I had not had an oatmeal cookie for about 25 years, and because I'm one of those 3 to 5% of people who can't have any of the certified gluten-free oats. So I used both sorghum flour and a blend, and then the flakes, and they were delicious. I used just a basic classic oatmeal cookie recipe with like raisins, and they were really delicious. I had a lot of people try them, and I think people liked them better, so that was really fun. So just to finish up, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the attributes of sorghum, other than the ones that we've already talked about. And I'd like to have Mike and Megan tell me a little bit about some that they recognize or that they feel would be valuable to them and their students. The one I obviously am happy about is that it does meet the free from top 8 allergens and no gluten. So it can be prepared very easily, as we mentioned before, for the gluten-free diet or from any of the free-from diets. Megan, Mike, do you have anything you want to talk about any of the attributes?
Yeah. We, how to word this? We embraced a concept that was brought that I saw at a conference a couple years back called Menus of Change, and it involved a partnership with the Culinary Institute of America and the T.H. Chan, the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health on protein flipping, where you can take these plant-based proteins and decrease the animal-based proteins on a given dish, and you still get the same protein. So, instead of an 8-ounce steak, cut it down to a 4 or 5 and add 3 or 4 ounces of sorghum or another plant-based protein, and it will cut your costs, reduces our carbon footprint. We go through obviously a lot of U.S. eats a lot of red meat, a lot of chicken, and it would really help in overall the sustainability aspect, lowering your costs and still getting that protein.
That's a great attribute. I love that.
Yeah, and something that I really enjoy, like Mike had just mentioned, is the sustainability factor. It is American grown. So when I told students that it is grown, in Kansas, Texas, Colorado, Arkansas, and Oklahoma, they were blown away. A lot of times it's hard to find products like that are actually grown in the United States. And it actually does take less water than a lot of grains and a lot of vegetables and produce in general. So again, it's economical, and it's that sustainability factor that students are really looking for, and us as Americans are looking for, and people in the world are looking for. And that's something that we're really moving to at Cal Poly, is really trying to look at sustainability as a whole, trying to get as local as we can for the majority of things, or things that use less water, or again, that carbon footprint, cutting back on our carbon footprint. So there's a lot of benefits to these sustainability factors, and sorghum definitely checks a lot of those boxes, which is really exciting. It checks the nutrition box, it checks the sustainability box, it checks that it's American grown and it uses less water, it checks that it's a plant-based protein, that it's gluten-free and free of the top 8 allergens. So it really kind of encompasses all of the things that I'm looking for when I'm talking about any of these these new trending foods.
That's excellent. So, so this slide talks a little bit about what's on trend, and if you look in any type of food industry magazines or publications, you'll see sorghum being mentioned, and this shows you some of the examples of that, where the New York Times has listed sorghum and teff, which is another ancient grain that's gluten-free, that are up in trend. You're seeing them on a lot of the restaurant menus and in food trucks and things like that across the country. The global menu options, we do see that as an increase. Do you guys use a lot of global menu options at Cal Poly? What are some of the things that you do? You mentioned the Asian salad and the Southwestern. What other things do you do there?
We do a lot of Thai, Indian. Those Thai and Indian are actually becoming more popular for our population, at least. Students are getting more savvy, we feel, when it comes to kinds of global flavors, and so we're just, again, trying to keep on trend with those. And that's another attribute of sorghum, is that it is kind of a new grain. It's really, it can be used in a lot of global applications, no matter what kind of spices or seasonings or ingredients you're using.
That's right. Mike, do you have anything you want to add about this on trend?
We found, adding it to into our soup of the day, or applications like that, replacing, barley or something, it really holds up well, as we cook in big batches. And, it really found that it held up, better than a pasta in a soup. And it gave it that kind of nutty chew in a soup like that.
Did you notice did you freeze the soup and then try to reheat it again after you had already added it into the soup? Did you try that at all?
No, we don't. No, we don't have that kind of technology and equipment here to actually, do it correctly. But like I said, we did freeze it, the straight sorghum, and defrost it, and it was fine. But for us to chill a soup and bag it and chill it and reheat it, we're not there yet.
Okay. Well, great. Well, I wanted to thank you guys so much for participating today in the webinar. You've gone over and above and beyond, being a participant as well as including your students. And Cal Poly is so lucky to have you leading the pack over there. And we also obviously want to thank our sponsor, United Sorghum Checkoff Program, and I did want to mention their website, especially Simply Sorghum, because you saw some of the recipes that were listed there. And not only do they have recipes, but they have a lot of just excellent information. Megan, I know that you kind of perused the website quite a bit. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the website's laid out beautifully. Whoever their web designer was brilliant. It's really easy to use. It's beautiful. It's colorful. We had a lot of good ideas stemming from that website in general, so I highly recommend checking it out. They have a lot of recipes for any application: sweet, savory, spicy, breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert. I mean, you name it, there's something for everyone. So I definitely suggest taking a quick look at that website.
And then also on the website, they will help you to find sorghum and find suppliers. We did want to thank our suppliers today that gave us the samples for our experiment: Bob's Red Mill in Milwaukee, Oregon, California Cereal Products in Oakland, California, New Life Market in Scott City, Kansas, and Wonder Grain in Miami, Florida. And I love the fact that these are coming from all over the United States. So I think that's really, really cool. So thank you again for those of you who attended today. Check the websites for availability. Ask your distributors. If you don't see sorghum in your area, ask for some assistance with that. If we have more demand, we'll create the availability. So thanks again, Cal Poly, for attending and helping us with the project today. And thank you all for attending the webinar. Have a great one.